The following podcast reflects our personal opinions and interpretations of publicly available information and should not be construed as factual assertions or legal advice. While we aim to provide accurate commentary, this discussion is speculative in nature and intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. We have taken care to conduct thorough research and carefully investigate the information discussed to ensure accuracy where possible, but we acknowledge that we may not have access to all the facts. As freelance producers, our views are entirely our own and do not represent or reflect the positions of any individuals or entities mentioned in this discussion. Any references to individuals, organizations, or events are made in good faith based on publicly available sources. We expressly disclaim any intent to harm reputations or imply unlawful conduct by any party. And with that said, let's get into it.
Hey y'all, Lauren here, TV producer by day, reality junkie by night, and your guide to the galaxy of shows you love to hate, hate to love, and live to bitch about. This is Reality Bites, the podcast where we deep dive into the week's buzziest reality TV and pop culture happenings.
I'm Morgan. By night, I'm Lauren's co-host and other better half. And by day, I moonlight as an executive producer. I've been around the Bravo block enough to know, let's just say, where the bodies are buried.
We'll take you through the biggest and best water cooler moments of the week through a producer's lens you won't find anywhere else.
Buckle up, buttercups.
I've had enough of you, you beast.
Beast? How dare you?
This is Reality Bites.
The It Ends With Us controversy is not just a high-profile Hollywood feud. It is a touchstone for examining the entertainment industry's shifting power dynamics, systemic inequities, and the increasingly blurred lines between creative vision, financial imperatives, and public perception. This saga, involving players like Sony, William Morris Endeavor, Wayfarer Studios, Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds, and Justin Baldoni, offers an unparalleled case study in how Hollywood operates in the 21st century. From creative control disputes to the influence of packaging deals and the pressures of profitability, the fallout from this project lays bare the mechanics of an industry in flux. One of the most striking aspects of the It Ends With Us saga is the elevation of Lively's creative influence over Justin Baldoni's directorial authority. This shift underscores a growing trend in Hollywood, the prioritization of star power over traditional creative leadership. Lively's expanded role in post-production, including her reimagining of the film's tone and marketing strategy, demonstrates the increasing leverage of actors with significant public personas. Her edits emphasized broader, more marketable themes of resilience and strength, in contrast with Baldoni's darker and grittier version that stayed more true to the book. This pivot reflects an industry where the power of celebrity and social media often outweighs the artistic vision of directors and producers. Now, Ryan Reynolds, Lively's husband, added another layer of influence to the equation. Known for his ability to elevate projects through uncredited rewrites and strategic marketing, Reynolds' reported contributions to key scenes, such as the rooftop sequence, highlights how off-screen alliances can shape on-screen narratives. Reynolds' involvement not only bolstered Lively's position, but also reflected broader industry dynamics where interconnected partnerships redefine creative hierarchies. Now let's talk about William Morris Endeavor. WME's involvement in It Ends With Us offers a striking case study in how multi-representation and remnants of packaging deal practices can derail even the most promising of projects. Representing nearly every major player involved in the film, from Justin Baldoni to Wayfarer Studios, Blake Lively, almost everyone in the cast except for Isabella Ferrer, and Ryan Reynolds and his maximum effort, not to mention Colleen Hoover in an upcoming book deal, the agency had unparalleled control over the production. But that control came with serious conflicts of interest that ultimately raised questions about fairness, prioritization, and ethical boundaries. At the heart of WME's strategy was its alignment with Lively and Reynolds, two of Hollywood's most bankable stars. From the outset, Lively emerged as a dominant force on the project, pushing for creative changes that clashed with Baldoni's vision. Supported by WME, she took over critical aspects of the film, from editing the trailer to reshaping its marketing strategy to emphasize resilience over the novel's darker themes of domestic abuse. Now, Reynolds, meanwhile, leveraged his influence not only by contributing uncredited rewrites, but by tying the project's visibility to his upcoming Deadpool and the Clue franchise, which we'll talk about when we get to Sony later, both of which would be lucrative ventures under WME's purview. While Lively and Reynolds' star power was maximized, Baldoni, initially positioned as the creative lead, found himself increasingly sidelined. These dynamics raise concerns that perhaps WME prioritized its most financially powerful clients, leaving Baldoni to navigate an increasingly hostile production environment. Compounding this web of conflicts was WME's entanglement with JonesWorks PR, led by Stephanie Jones. JonesWorks handled publicity for Baldoni and Wayfarer Studios during production, but Jones's husband, Jason Hodes, is a senior partner at William Morris, further complicating perceptions of impartiality. Allegations of retaliatory PR strategies and defamation lawsuits involving JonesWorks added yet another layer of messiness, highlighting how deeply personal and professional connections could blur ethical lines in this project. The It Ends With Us saga underscores the broader issues surrounding packaging deals as well, a practice that William Morris and other agencies agreed to phase out following the Writers Guild of America's historic legal battle. Packaging allowed agencies to bundle talent into projects and earn lucrative upfront fees and back-end profits, creating inherent conflicts of interest. While WME no longer formally packages projects, its multi-representation of key players mirrors many of the same issues. Now, as we had mentioned previously, and adding to the complexity is WME's position within the evolving entertainment industry. Its parent company, Endeavor, recently finalized a deal to go private, which will take effect in the first quarter of 2025, in a $13 billion deal with Silver Lake. While the privatization underscores the growing influence of private equity in Hollywood, it also raises concerns about whether financial imperatives will take precedence over creative equity. WME's actions in It Ends With Us, favoring high-revenue stars and facilitating brand promotions like Lively's Betty Buzz and Betty Booze over collective project interests, reflects this shifting landscape. Ultimately, WME's involvement in It Ends With Us exemplifies how agencies can become entangled in the very conflicts they are meant to mediate. By prioritizing its most lucrative clients, WME effectively reshaped the narrative of the project, sidelining its original creative leads and exposed the structural inequities of multi-representation. As Hollywood grapples with these systemic changes, It Ends With Us may serve as a rallying cry for greater protections for creatives and clearer guidelines to prevent similar entanglements in the future. Now, let's shift gears and talk about Sony. Sony Pictures Entertainment's involvement with It Ends With Us sheds light on the delicate interplay between creative freedom, financial priorities, and strategic alliances in Hollywood as well. Acting as both the distributor and co-financier of the project, Sony played a pivotal role in shaping its trajectory, particularly during the post-production phase. Partnering with Wayfarer Studios, which was co-founded by Justin Baldoni and owned the rights to the It Ends With Us franchise, Sony was initially aligned with the project's socially conscious vision. However, as tensions emerged between Baldoni's creative approach and Lively's vision, Sony's decisions revealed a broader strategy of prioritizing marketability and future partnerships over artistic integrity. Wayfarer Studios, under Baldoni's leadership, has long been committed to producing stories with emotional depth and social relevance. For It Ends With Us, Baldoni envisioned a grounded, raw adaptation that stayed faithful to Colleen Hoover's best-selling novel. The book's exploration of domestic abuse, resilience, and healing offered fertile ground for the kind of intimate storytelling Wayfarer championed. However, Sony's role as a co-financier introduced a new layer of complexity. As the primary distributor, Sony handled global marketing, release strategies, and broader financial considerations, making it a key decision maker once the film entered the post-production phase. Now, while Wayfarer had significant control during development and filming, the studio's investment empowered Sony to steer the project in a direction it believed would maximize profitability. Sony's pivotal decision to back Lively's creative vision over Baldoni's during post marked a turning point for the project. Lively's expanded responsibilities included re-editing the trailer, which replaced Baldoni's subdued aesthetic with a sweeping romantic tone, complete with Taylor Swift's My Tears Ricochet as the soundtrack. And this shift was emblematic of her broader efforts to reframe the film as a mainstream drama rather than an intense character study. Reports suggest that test audiences responded actually more favorably to Baldoni's vision, but Sony decided to endorse Lively's instead. Now, for Sony, aligning with Lively wasn't merely about the immediate project. Her future influence extended to her personal and professional partnership with her husband, Ryan Reynolds, whose A-list status makes him a critical player in Sony's broader plans. So Sony's decision during It Ends With Us cannot be fully understood without examining its relationship with Reynolds and the upcoming Clue franchise. Sony secured the rights to Clue from Hasbro, envisioning it as a major tentpole project with Ryan's attached to star and his company Maximum Effort co-producing. With the studio under pressure to deliver consistent hits amid financial insecurity, the stakes for Clue are immense. Ryan's track record with blockbuster successes, particularly the Deadpool franchise, positioned him as a valuable partner for Sony. This context makes the studio's alignment with Lively on It Ends With Us a strategic move to solidify its relationship with the couple. So with that said, Sony's support for Lively's vision therefore may have been just as much about securing future collaborations with Reynolds as it was about the immediate success of It Ends With Us and their partnership with Lively. Now, Sony's recent financial struggles have amplified its reliance on franchise projects and star-driven vehicles to remain competitive. Unlike vertically integrated giants like Disney, Sony lacks its own streaming platform, making its survival contingent on theatrical hits and marquee partnerships. This economic reality shapes its approach to It Ends With Us as the studio sought to mitigate risks by leaning into Lively's marketability and Reynolds' star power. Sony's response to Lively's workplace concerns during production reflects a broader trend of liability management within major studios. By redirecting her complaints to Wayfarer Studios, Sony distanced itself from potential fallout, focusing instead on damage control. This cautious approach carried over to post, where backing Lively's creative changes aligned with the studio's desire to position the film as a commercial success. Lively's high-profile press appearances, often accompanied by her promotion of personal brands like Betty Buzz and Betty Booze, exemplify Sony's strategy of capitalizing on her public persona. While not officially part of the film's marketing strategy, these efforts underscored the studio's broader reliance on Lively's star power to drive audience engagement. The evolving power dynamics between Sony and Wayfarer offer a textbook example of how creative control shifts in studio production partnerships. While Baldoni and Wayfarer held significant sway during development and principal photography, Sony's financial investment granted it ultimate authority during post and in its release. As is typical in studio finance projects, Sony retained final cut rights, enabling it to override creative decisions that it perceived as risky or unmarketable. Baldoni's darker version of the film, which aligned with the book's tone, was deemed less commercially viable than Lively's more accessible approach. Sony's decision to support Lively's trailer edit and marketing strategy for the film reflects this power dynamic. Now, Sony's financial stake also gave it considerable leverage over production budgets and timelines. Any creative choices by Wayfarer that threatened to exceed budgetary constraints would likely have been curtailed by the studio. This dynamic also underscores the delicate balance smaller production companies like Wayfarer must navigate when partnering with major studios. Sony's handling of It Ends With Us reflects systemic trends that increasingly prioritize financial consideration and strategic alliances over artistic integrity. Sony's decision to back Blake Lively's changes over Baldoni's original vision highlights a growing trend in Hollywood where the star power of bankable actors increasingly outweighs the influence of directors and creative leads. This shift underscores how major studios prioritize marketability and audience appeal, often at the expense of preserving a director's vision. Additionally, Sony's alignment with Lively and Reynolds showcases the strategic influence of interconnected projects in shaping unrelated productions. With Reynolds spearheading the upcoming Clue franchise under Sony, this partnership likely strengthened the studio's willingness to accommodate Lively's creative vision, creating a ripple effect across multiple ventures. At its core, Sony's approach illustrates the economic pressures that drive studios to favor short-term financial gains over long-term creative collaborations. The It Ends With Us saga underscores the growing role of public relations and media narratives in shaping Hollywood disputes as well. From orchestrated leaks to strategic lawsuits, the battle for public opinion has become as critical as the legal and financial stakes. Lively's public filing, paired with the New York Times expose released hours later, exemplifies how PR strategies are now integral to legal disputes. By framing herself as the victim of workplace harassment and retaliation, Lively shifted public sentiment in her favor, leveraging media coverage to bolster her position. Baldoni's limited ability to respond due to the broad no retaliation clause highlights the challenges of defending against public allegations. This provision, while intended to prevent workplace hostility, effectively silenced Baldoni, amplifying the discrepancy of the PR battle. And the use of leaked texts and viral moments raises ethical concerns about the manipulation of public perception. While such tactics are increasingly common in high-stakes disputes, they risk undermining trust and transparency within the industry. Now, let's talk about how this situation reflects broader systemic trends in Hollywood, shedding light on issues of power, equity, and creative control. With the marginalization of smaller players, the sidelining of Wayfarer Studios and Baldoni illustrates the challenges smaller production companies face in partnerships with major studios. As financial stakes increase, creative autonomy often takes a back seat to studio priorities. And the elevation of Lively and Reynolds in the creative hierarchy underscores Hollywood's growing reliance on star power as a risk mitigation strategy. While this approach can drive short-term profitability, it does risk alienating directors and other creative collaborators for the future. Additionally, Sony's alignment with Reynolds and Maximum Effort demonstrates how interconnected projects shape studio decisions. The influence of Clue on It Ends With Us highlights the ripple effect of strategic alliances, where unrelated projects become entangled in broader negotiations. The controversy underscores the need for greater transparency and accountability in Hollywood. From reevaluating packaging deals to strengthening contractual protections for creative leads, the industry must address systemic inequities to foster more equitable and collaborative environments. The fallout from It Ends With Us offers valuable lessons for Hollywood's future. For studios, the importance of balancing financial imperatives with creative equity cannot be overstated. While leveraging star power may deliver short-term box office gains, it risks long-term reputational damage if artistic integrity is compromised. Then for agencies, the complexities of multi-representation must be managed with greater care to avoid conflicts of interest. Agencies like WME may need to adopt stricter policies to ensure fair and equitable advocacy for all their clients, especially when navigating competing priorities within the same project as we had here. And for creatives, this saga highlights the critical need for directors and smaller production companies to advocate for stronger contractual protections. Safeguarding their artistic vision from external pressures is essential to maintaining a fair creative process. And then for the industry at large, It Ends With Us serves as a powerful reminder of the importance of accountability, transparency, and equity. As Hollywood continues to evolve, it must confront its shifting power dynamics and strive to balance creativity, profitability, and integrity in an increasingly complex entertainment landscape. Now, these lessons from It Ends With Us highlight the intricate dynamics of Hollywood's power plays, but they also open the door to an intriguing possibility. Could Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds' assertive moves on this project have been part of a broader strategy to secure control over the franchise's future? If you recall, Reynolds made a bold play to secure creative control over his Deadpool franchise during the negotiating process for Deadpool 2, which ultimately ousted director Tim Miller. Now, if this is the case, Lively and Reynolds' actions might reveal a calculated bill not just to reshape It Ends With Us, but to position themselves for the coveted sequel rights to It Starts With Us. Let's delve into what this might mean for the series moving forward. As tensions between Lively, Baldoni, and Wayfarer Studios continues to escalate, one question does loom large. What happens to the sequel rights for It Starts With Us, the follow-up to It Ends With Us? Wayfarer Studios, led by Baldoni, acquired the rights to both books in 2019, but with the creative partnership now fractured, the future of the franchise is uncertain. Now here's where things get interesting. There's speculation that this entire ordeal, Lively's allegations, the dueling PR narratives, and the legal fallout, could have broader implication for the sequel's ownership. If Baldoni's reputation continues to take a hit, could this open the door for renegotiating the rights? Adding to the intrigue is the involvement of Reynolds. Now, on September 15th of 2024, Life and Style reported that Reynolds was, quote, willing to offer millions to buy out Baldoni's stake in the franchise. According to the report, the goal was clear: to allow Lively to continue her role in the sequel without having to work alongside Baldoni. If true, this underscores just how valuable the sequel rights are and how far Reynolds might go to secure them for Lively. But this raises an even more provocative question. Was this the plan all along? If Reynolds and Lively were dissatisfied with Baldoni's creative direction, or if tensions behind the scenes make the partnership untenable, could the recent fallout have been a strategic move to wrestle control of the franchise away from him? As mentioned with Deadpool, Ryan Reynolds understands the value of controlling a franchise. Now, could he have seen this as an opportunity to create a similar dynamic for Lively, positioning her as the star of a highly marketable series where she holds greater creative influence? If this theory holds any weight, it would be a masterful play, combining PR strategy, legal maneuvering, and franchise ambition into one high-stakes Hollywood drama. Adding to the complexity is Colleen Hoover's August 2024 exclusive deal with WME Independent to sell and distribute her next adaptation, Regretting You. This raises questions about whether there could be a strategic effort to regain the rights to the It Ends With Us sequel from Justin Baldoni. Could WME, already representing Hoover for her next big project, be positioning itself to secure broader control over her adaptations? From a legal standpoint, there are several pathways that could lead to a shift in ownership. For example, if the original contract between Wayfarer and Colleen Hoover, the author, includes provisions for reversion of rights in cases of reputational harm or breach of contract, the rights could potentially revert to Hoover or be opened up for renegotiation. Also, allegations of misconduct or retaliation against Baldoni could be leveraged to justify removing him from the franchise entirely. While the specifics of the original contract are unknown, these clauses are common in Hollywood agreements and could play a key factor in the months to come. A clear avenue to reclaim those rights could hinge on Baldoni's behavior and its fallouts. If his actions or reputational damage the franchise's value, Hoover or other stakeholders could theoretically argue that this constitutes a breach of moral clauses or other contractual obligations tied to the project. Such clauses, common in entertainment agreements, allow parties to sever ties if someone's conduct significantly impacts the viability or public perception of a work. The filing of Lively's complaint could also play into this. While the complaint itself targets allegations of harassment and retaliation, the legal and public relations fallout could create a domino effect. If Baldoni's position as the creative lead is seen as untenable, it might open the door for negotiations to shift control over the franchise. And then There's WME's decision to drop Baldoni shortly after the complaint went public. While agencies typically part ways with clients for reputational reasons, this move also eliminates WME's duty to advocate for Baldoni, which could free them to focus on their more lucrative relationships with Reynolds, Lively, and Hoover. This shift could be a critical factor if discussions about the sequel's ownerships arise. Ultimately, the interplay between Baldoni's alleged behavior, the legal battles surrounding the project, and WME's positioning creates a web of potential leverage points. If the Rights to It Ends With Us' sequel comes under scrutiny, these factors could pave the way for Hoover or WME or even Lively and Reynolds to find legal pathways to regain control, whether through negotiation, contract clauses, or even the fallout from ongoing disputes. The timing and details are hard to ignore. Lively's allegations, paired with Reynolds' report of willingness to buy out Baldoni's stake, suggest that this might be more than a simple workplace dispute. Whether intentional or coincidental, the fallout has placed Baldoni and Wayfarer on the defensive and opened the door for Lively and Reynolds to potentially reshape the future of the franchise on their terms. So this all isn't just a cautionary tale. It's a defining moment for Hollywood. By exposing the industry's inner workings, this controversy challenges stakeholders to rethink how power is brokered, how stories are told, and whose voices are amplified. As the dust settles, the lessons from this case may shape the future of entertainment, pushing Hollywood towards a more equitable and sustainable model for storytelling. Because as we know, guys, it isn't just ending here. Just this week, Baldoni dropped a bombshell $250 million lawsuit lobbied against the New York Times for libel. And concurrently, Lively filed a formal legal complaint with her claims. And I think it's safe to assume that Baldoni will be dropping his own countersuit very soon as well. But don't worry, guys. Once these lawsuits are dropped, Lauren and I are going to hop on the mic together and talk through everything as it stands. Because this saga is far from over. So stay tuned.